What's up, everybody? How are you? We are, let me look here. We're about 2 minutes early, just wanting to give people the time to join us. Help us out. Go let your friends know. If you'll let people know that, invite them to come be a part. We're going to talk tonight to parents of adult kids, and we're going to talk about communicating with your adult. Oh, I almost dropped y'all. Sorry. We're going to talk about communicating with your adult children. I'm excited about tonight. If you see my eyes, I have not been on an illegal in the state of Texas substance. It's just, man, look how red my eyes are. We traveled all day. I got caught up in that speaking this weekend in Colorado and got caught up in that, whatever it was, the internet, the technology breakdown. Got my flight canceled, so we stayed an extra day, which, by the way, can I tell you something? If you live in the great state of Texas, this time of year, if you're going to get stuck somewhere, get stuck in Colorado where it's a little better weather. I will say that, hey, all you guys, look, Evelyn, Edie, Suzanne, friends. Now, my eyes aren't great, so y'all don't be upset if I miss you here. John Spencer, hey, man, how are you? Just want to, hi, is that Macy? Hi, Macy. So invite your friends, let them know we're going to be live. We're talking tonight about communicating with your adult kids. I had an interesting conversation on Sunday night. The last conversation I had after being with about 300 parents of adult kids, grandparents, empty nesters, actually all kinds of parents, but I spent some time at the end with some parents of adult kids talking about the very thing I want to talk to you about tonight. It was confirmation that we were on the right track. Hey, Bailey's here. She says, hi, Dad. Hi, Carolyn, Sarah, Adrian. You letting your friends know, have them come and join us if they're a parent of adult kids. If you're a grandparent, we're going to talk about communicating with your adult kids. And I have a gift for you tonight. All of you who are joining, I'm going to tell you about it in a while. Something I'm very excited about getting your hands that I think can help you. Hey, if you are joining us and you are the parent of an adult child, tell me, just give me a check mark or a yes or some affirmation if being the parent of an adult child is more challenging than you thought it was going to be. If that's you, just let me know. Just down there in the comments, just say, hey, man, this is a little more challenging than I thought it was going to be. I'd love to hear you just have a lot of you confess like I do that, man, it's great. I'm just saying this is a little bit harder than you thought it was going to be. I think here's what happens to most of us, I think. Here's my theory. My theory is, you have a baby, you go to all the birthing classes, you read all the books, and you kind of learn about being the parent of a newborn. And then your children begin to grow and you find the next greatest book or blog or information out there. And you kind of learn how to go through the experience of raising an elementary age child, and then you get teenagers, and it's kind of the battle zone for lots of us, just them becoming young adults. And you feel like you've gained all of this experience and all of these phases, and then your children become independent adults. They become, like fellow adults with you, and you think you ought to know how to be a parent. But it's just like the first time you had a child. Come on, am I talking to anybody out there? It's just like when you're getting ready to have a newborn. It's a whole different skill set. Now, one of the things that people argue with me about quite a bit, I get this comment a ton, is when I start talking about how you parent adult kids. And one of the things, that's kind of core for us is that we are consultants. We're no longer coaches. We are no longer coaches. We are consultants. What does that mean? That means that we no longer do we call the plays. No longer are we in charge to call the plays. What does a consultant do? A consultant offers advice when asked, and doesn't own whether or not their kids take their advice. That's what a consultant does, and that's our role. And this is what people say: I never stop being a parent. I'm not saying you stop being a parent. That's not what we're talking about. I'm always going to be Bailey's dad. I'm always going to be Ross's dad, always. But if I try to parent, relate to my kids as adults the way I did when they lived in my home, what I'm telling you is it's not going to work. Why? Because your goal was to raise an independent adult, and they're actually being what you raised them to be. They don't have the life experience you have, so you have some gifts to share with them. But if you destroy the platform that you have with them, you'll lose the ability to influence them. And so that's what I mean. What is that? Join my team. That's kind of crazy. I don't know what's happening here in Montana. I've got all kinds of stuff happening, but it's kind of cool. So one of the areas I think we struggle in the most is learning how to communicate with our adult kids. Part of it is generational differences, quite honestly. Part of it is the way different generations, they may hold your values, but they see the world differently, right? That they have been... they have grown up in a context and a culture that is different than you did. One of the things, quite honestly, let's just get the ball rolling. Let me see if I can make some of you mad. Is right now one of the struggles we have is that we have a generation coming in adulthood that the goal of parents of my generation were, hey, I'm going to give my kid what I never had. That's what I heard. Hundreds of my peers say, I'm going to give my kid what I didn't have. And a part of that is because they get, things that were unthinkable for us to get when we were kids. We wanted to do it differently. Then what you raise is a group of kids who kind of expect to start where you worked really hard to get to, right? I mean, they kind of think they ought to have the same kind of car you have at 45 after working in a job for 20 years when they're just going into the workforce. That's a part of what happens coming into the context of this. And so we've got to figure out how truth does not change, but the way that we communicate with our kids has got to change. And I think here's what I would say. And I wonder what some of you would think about this, because here's my theory. And again, this is my TikTok, so it's my theory. But I'm kind of convinced that one of the big challenges for us as parents of adult kids, think about how many times you said or have heard someone say, hey, when you were raising your kids when they were younger, kids don't need a friend, they need a parent. They've got plenty of friends, you be the parent, which is true when your kids are being raised. I think we talked some in our family about, hey, if your child likes everything, if they're not rolling their eyes from time to time, you're probably not doing it right. In other words, man, free yourself from the need for your kids to like everything that you want them to do. But here's the challenge. The challenge is when they reach adulthood, now your relationship as a parent becomes more of a friend relationship than it does a parent-child relationship. They become more of a peer. You're always going to have influence, hopefully, in their life in a positive way. It's not going to be exactly every other adult friend that you have. But I do believe that a huge part of this is that we have to kind of begin to gauge this relationship. Am I building an adult friendship with my child? Am I building an adult friendship? Which means this. This is what we were talking about for those of you who've been with us. This is what we were talking about Sunday night. I was talking about with some parents who were having some struggle in the no contact rule. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But I told them, they would say, well, what do you think we ought to do about this? And my answer was, well, how would you do that with another adult that was just a close friend of yours? Like, how would you communicate that? What would the boundaries be? I would never go over to an adult friend of mine's house. I wouldn't just show up at their door at 9 o'clock one night unannounced. I wouldn't do that. So I shouldn't do that if my child lives in my town. I wouldn't call my friend if they didn't answer, call them back 10 times. And then when I finally talked to them, complain that how come you didn't answer your phone? I wouldn't do that. So I got to be kind of more respectful. It's a different kind of relationship. You with me? And it's true about communication. There's so much talk out there about this is what I hear from a lot of people. I'm going to generalize, but you understand, man, like, I don't know, what is it, Montana? Don't let me make something up for these people. I mean, we're talking, over 60,000 people, 400,000 comments. So, I mean, there's been lots of feedback we've gotten, from all kinds of folks as we talk about these issues. And one of the things I want to say when it comes to communication, you have to ask yourself this question, like, what is my end goal in communicating with my child? I mean, really, what is it? What is the big goal? We talk all the time. I borrowed Stephen Covey's old statement, you begin with the end in mind. Like, what do you want it to look like in the end? And for me, with my kids, in the end, I want to have a positive, healthy, respectful relationship where I can add value into the lives of my kids, and my kids appreciate the value that I bring. That's what I want. That's what I want with my kids. I want a platform to be able to add value in my grandkids' life. And so that's always, as I think about communicating, what's a way that will move me toward that goal? And I've got to tell you, just being honest, I get thousands of comments of these hundreds of thousands. My friend Montana is here that has helped me with a lot of this. She can attest that say, all everyone wants to talk to me about is what their kid did. They don't respect this. They don't appreciate this. They don't do this. Well, in a relationship, when it's all about what the other person didn't do instead of what can I do, you're going to struggle in any adult relationship, right? If your whole relationship is like improvement is based upon what you think somebody else ought to do. I mean, it starts with me, right? I can't change my children, my adult children. I can only change me. That's what I'm ultimately responsible for. So when it comes to communication with them, what are values that I've got to adhere to no matter what? And one is, it's boundaries. Communication is about boundaries. It's about clearly communicating boundaries. And here's the thing. We tend to communicate boundaries to our kids when there's a problem, when the wisdom says, hey, we build boundaries before there's a problem. I heard a lady talking about this somewhere. I can't remember where, but she was talking about, if your adult child lives in your home, which is a whole different deal we can talk about at some point. I think people ask me a lot, well, when do you move from consultant to coach? And the answer is, when they're not, like, you're not financially responsible for it. As long as you have some financial responsibility, you have some coaching responsibility. Why? Because nobody receives any kind of income or resource from somebody with no accountability. That's not how the world works. If you have a job, you are accountable to somebody who signs your paycheck. That's just, so you've got to teach your children that if they're living in your home. And say you've got an adult child living in your home, and they tend to come in at 1 or 2 in the morning, and you've got to get your sleep for whatever it's happened. And what usually happens is we let it build up over time, and they come in at 2 and it wakes you up, and then you have a bad day the next day, and over time resentment builds up, and then you say, okay, we're going to set a boundary. A better way to do that is when they move in, hey, here are some rules. Here's some boundaries in our home. And the boundary is this, like, you're a grown adult. I'm not going to tell you how long you can stay out. You're not in high school anymore. What I'm telling you is I've got to go to bed by, I'm going to make something up, 11 for those of you who aren't old like me, like I'd say 9, But you come in where you're going, but you have to be respectful, and you have to, here are the things so that I can get the rest that I need to do what I need to do. That's talking about that before it becomes an issue will always go better. So boundaries and clearly communicating boundaries and the need for boundaries. I know a lot of adult parents of adult kids who, their kids say to them, "Hey, you can't just come over whenever you want to come over," and it hurts our feelings. And it's like, well, this is my kid. They'll let me. No, it's them respecting you enough to clearly communicating. So you've got to clearly communicate boundaries to your kids. That's one of the things that the gift I'm going to give you talks about. But I want to talk about it just a little bit here. I think sometimes having two ears and one mouth is something when it comes to communication. In other words, I want to make sure I'm listening as much as I am talking. In other words, I want to ask questions. One of the things that we talk about to parents of young children, parents of kids who are still living under, all the way from, toddler years through high school, we talk about validating before you prescribe. In other words, that if your child says, "I'm scared of this," or "I'm worried about this," that the wrong thing to do is give them 3 steps to not be scared or tell them why they shouldn't be worried. No, it's to validate that feeling. It's to say to them, "Man, I know how you feel." And then to say to them, "Here's how God helps me," which is a way to connect them to how God can help them. And I think this is true with adults, kids as well. Just validate, "Man, I bet that is hard. I bet that it is tough to have financial challenges. I remember a season in our life when we were there. Man, that's a hard thing, and there's no easy answer." And when you begin to validate where they are, explaining to them you've been there, telling them about mistakes you made, not just all the ways you got it right, making sure that you're communicating those kind of things to your kids, listening to what they're saying, and instead of jumping in to solve their problems, look at it as, "Man, how can I help them discover ways to solve their problems?" And here's the thing about mutual problem solving is they're all the time. They're not. What's hard was hard for me. My kids, when they first were adults, is they would ask me what I thought. I would tell them, and then they wouldn't do it. They'd do something differently, and it's like I've got to give them that space and room, right? Like I'm a resource to help them ask the right questions. And many times, though, the only way that they learn is the same way I learn. How do we learn? How do most of us learn? The answer is we learn through pain. That's how we learn. It's mostly through pain that we learn. Most of us are changed because some pain came in our life, and we said, "I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not doing that again." I'm not going to go spend all of my monthly resource, get it committed to credit so that I don't have any money to live on. That's just one example. I'm not going to load up a credit card so at the end of the month, when I pay my rent or my house payment and my credit card bill, I don't have any money left. But how did you learn that? Because you lived that way for a while. So when you give your children, your adult kids, when you have honest conversations about financial challenges, no, we don't. We have to fight the urge sometimes to bail them out. And I'll be one to say, man, we want, especially if you have some resource to do it. But it's like, man, is that the best thing to do? Are you robbing your kids? Here's the question. Are you robbing your kids of the opportunity to grow because you're not allowing them to experience the pain of less than best decisions in life? Now, I'm not talking about things that are going to harm them or harm your grandkids. One of the questions I got was a sweet lady was talking to me about her oldest daughter and some things with their grandchild that were, I'm reading between the lines, but it's like, man, some of it is, it could be considered, man, this is a dangerous situation for my grandchild to be in. Those kind of extreme situations where there's real damage coming to somebody you care about. I mean, sometimes you have to intervene in ways that nobody likes. You have to do that with your friends too, right? At times you have to have those hard conversations. But a lot of times, most of the time, it's like we helping will hurt them because it robs them of the power of what pain really does, which is causes transformation in life. So we want to we want to listen. And we want to validate more than we prescribe with them as we communicate with them. And what we want to do is not give them the answers, but we want to become a mutual problem solver with them. We want to be a resource to help them learn how to solve their problem. Now, I've got one here that says my son would take my money for for his medical because he wanted to be an adult, and and eventually, I think if I understand it, it actually led to him taking his life, and and I'm sorry that that's been the case for you. I love this one who said, I also think that we have to love them home. I've tried to let him grow up. If I tried harder, he would be here. And that's part of it. Sometimes, man, it's like it'd be easier if he is home. Would be easier short term, but it's not going to be easier long term until they learn to be independent adults. And I'm really sorry for whoever this is. My eyes are bad. I'm sorry, broken mom, that your son took his life. And I don't want you to own too much of something that you shouldn't own from him. I think a lot of times as parents, we live under the regret of a bad decision that our adult child made, and we own more of it than we should in the middle of our grief. And I don't know your whole situation, but I just want you to know I hurt with you. One of the big controversial issues out there is, I see it. He lost it to his type 1 diabetes. He wouldn't let me help him because he was mad at me. Yeah, that's a tough thing. He's not allowing you to, and it eventually cost him his life. And here's the thing. Can I just say this to you, ma'am, and say this to all of us? When our kids live under our roof, we have the illusion of control. I mean, we actually don't have as much control as we think we do, but there's some safety in that. I think when our kids become independent adults, that illusion is shattered. It's like, I think a lot of questions I get are about how can I control my kid in this area, and people get frustrated with me because I basically find a kind word to say you can't control the outcome. And man, if you were giving your kid to God when he was or she was 16 and they started driving for the first time, I'm telling you what, you have to give your child to God as a young adult, as an older adult, when they're out on their own, just as much. And sometimes I think that we make decisions based upon how we think our children are going to react. And I get how difficult that is. Well, I don't want to do that because I don't want them to get mad and leave my influence. But the fact of the matter is you're not really having influence at that moment anyway, are you? Which leads us to this topic that so many have been talking about, this no contact. I thought I wrote some notes down about no contact. And by the way, in the bio, if you go up to the link in my bio here, I've got a gift for you, and it is 5 principles of communication. Some 5 tips on communication with your adult child. 5 tips on communication with your adult child. I'd love for you to have it. We were talking about it just before we began. It's just a 2-page PDF, but it's for parents of adult children. And it'll give you some 5 strategies, and 4 or 5 tips with each strategy. And I think it'll help you. I really want you to have it. And it's in the link in the bio for those of you who are coming through and coming in. Shelly, my friend Shelly Irwin says, I'll never forget when you said raising kids it's a series of letting go. It is. It's just a painful releasing. That's what it is. And even as adult kids. And I think one of the most painful things that I hear parents of adult kids talk to me about, in the catchphrase in today's world is no contact. It is adult children deciding for whatever reason that they're going to go they're not going to have any contact with their parents for a season of time. And so I could talk about it from the adult child's perspective, but that's not who's here. Who's here is parents of adult kids. So I want to talk, we could talk about you parents of adult children deciding to go no contact with your child, and what leads you to that, which is really a boundaries conversation. And let me just say quickly to you, the goal of that is reconciliation, and it is a boundary that keeps you from experiencing a pain, that keeps you from being everything God's called you to be. And it is a last resort that all of us would hope would never come to that for us. But the bigger issue out there is a lot of kids who are parents of, or adult kids who are informing their parents that they're going into no contact. You don't call me, don't come to the house. You can't see your grandkids. And boy, this is a sensitive topic. It's bringing up a lot of emotion in a lot of people, and quite honestly, it's kind of becoming the thing to do among young adult families is, hey, you're not seeing eye to eye with your parents, or they're causing this. Not that there's not times that needs to happen for a season of time, but it's kind of becoming, hey man, reality for more people than I ever thought it was going to become. Why? Because adult children are seeing it as an alternative in ways that they've never seen it before. And so let me just say this. I've just written down a few things that if you are estranged from your adult child, whatever reason, they're not contacting you, they're not allowing you to see grandkids, whatever it is, let me tell you a few things I would tell you. I would tell you, number one, you need to find support in the form of another parent of adult children that can encourage you and can bless you along the way. You need somebody else who understands the depth of that pain that you would experience. I'm going to tell you something, man. I can't imagine not being able to be in communication with my adult kids, or not being able to have conversation with my grandkids. I can't imagine it. And if you and I were talking about it, if I was supporting you in something like that, I could speak to it in terms of it being one of the worst things that we could ever imagine happening. So you need somebody who's at your, not just experiencing it, but is at your stage of life. It's hard enough to go through. You can't go through it on your own. And so you need support. And I would say the first thing I tell you, if your children have gone no contact, find you some support. Find somebody else that you can encourage you in it. And I would say number two, whatever anger is driving them, make sure that you're not feeding the anger. In other words, refrain from the desperate need to be right when you find yourself in no contact with your kids, because it'll just feed the anger. What happens is your child writes you a letter or sends you a text. Hey, I don't want you calling me. I blocked. I'm going to block your number after this, or I want you texting me, and you send them a scathing letter of all the things that why they shouldn't be doing this. And the fact of the matter is, you might, like in your spirit, you might be right, but you're going to lose the whole thing because you're just feeding the anger that's already there. I think the best thing you can do is to begin, like say your children. I was telling, this is a conversation I had Sunday night. I was talking to this great lady whose child has said, hey man, like you can't just show up whenever you want to, and basically in a no contact kind of situation. She said, what do I do? And I said, well, tell me what you think kind of led to this. And she told me about how she had overreacted to her children because of the way that her parents had raised her, and here was a few mistakes she had made. And she pointed out a few mistakes that her son had made. And I said, well, let me tell you, here's where you ought to start. Own the mistakes you've made without any justification. Just say, hey, I just want you to know, I am discovering that I kind of overcompensated for how I was raised by my dad, and I did this to you. And can I just tell you, I'm sorry. Period. I'm sorry. And I just want you to know I'm going to respect the boundaries that you're setting up, as painful they are. But my goal is that you and I could have a healthy relationship at some point. See, I think what happens is when our kids go no contact, when our worst fear gets realized and the door slams, what we want to do is we want an answer that will open the door wide again. Let's open the door all the way. What's the thing I can do to get that door? And what I told this lady and what I want to tell you is, hey, your goal first is just to get the handle turned and just get the door cracked a little bit. You own your own. You ask for forgiveness, and it kind of opens the door a little bit for more conversation, right? And here's the fact of the matter. If you've gotten to like being estranged from your adult child, that door, it may open for a bit and then come back a little bit and open a little bit more and come back. It's going to be a process, and you're just going to be patient through the process, but don't feed the anger. And I would find a way, with no expectation, I would find a way to have regular communication that was on their terms. In other words, like if they blocked your number, I would just send a letter or a note. And I wouldn't send like 4 a week or anything, but every couple of weeks, just to know, hey, I just want you to know I care. I love you. I just want you to know I'm still hoping that we can have a relationship sometime. And I think that's important, to just have some ongoing where they can receive it with no expectation from you. I wouldn't call them, because then it's just feeding that anger, right? I think it's important for you in these situations to refrain from defending yourself. I really do. I think it's hard. It's hard, especially when what they're saying is like, man, I think you're missing it. But again, the goal here is to reconcile a relationship, not to prove that you're right. And at this point, yeah, the relationship, I agree, it's more important than being right. And you create this space where they start sensing that you have a value in them as a person, not simply you're trying to get them to do what you want them to do. I think that's the big important part of this. And then it is hard, man. And I think part of it is, what do we say, Bailey, all the time? Is man, like, work your side of the street. In other words, you can't focus, your entire world can't be centered on the health of this relationship. It has to be, what can you control? Your own health. So I've got to focus on myself, I can't, look, like Bailey and I are having this little conversation. She's talking to me in the comments, like, here's the deal, B, like, it would be hard for me, I think, to feel happy and complete if we weren't in a relationship. However, when you get down to it, I can't control our relationship. All I can control is my part of our relationship. And so my focus has got to be on my health first. And when I start getting healthier, I just have to trust God to do his work in it. And I just think we have to be really, really careful about, I just hear a lot, and I get you're frustrated. I get it's not going well, but I just hear a lot, like anger back toward me in these comments, which I'm a big boy. I can take it, but it's because I get what it is. It's this anger about, well, they don't do this and they don't do that. And hey, look, man, they're 28 years old. They're 31 years old. They haven't lived as much life as we have lived yet. And if we're honest about it, let's be honest. There was a lot of that in us when we were 27, 28. My goodness, from what I'm hearing from people, if we were all as great as we all say we are, we wouldn't be having this conversation with thousands of people, for parents of adult kids. So, it's like, man, we had our struggles too as young adults. We got to have some grace there. We got to have some grace for them. We have to meet them where they are, not where we want them to be. I don't know who this is, but somebody just comment that somebody said, wow, you keep hitting the nail on the head. I'm so tore up over my adult kids right now. It's throwing me, it feels like it's throwing me in depression. Where do I start? And the thing is, you start with you, man. You start with, hey, God, like do something to me, fill me, heal me, get me in a place where I can be the very best version of myself that I can, because I know that it's going to really, really help their kids as well. I have just great compassion for a lady who said on one of our TikToks that she was talking about, her 22-year-old daughter, and she's struggling to find her direction, and that her and her husband have fought some on getting past her past mistakes. And I'll just say this, bless you, ma'am. I know that you feel like you and your husband aren't on the same page, and it makes it so tough when you're not on the same page. But if I was married, if my wife was having a hard time in the past, or if I was having a hard time living in the past, I would hope she would remind me of what I say quite often, which is, I cannot deplete my energy trying to recreate the past. Why? Because I need that energy to partner with God in creating a new future for me. And I just meet so many people who are they're so filled with regret, and they seem to be expending their energy on what happened in the past. And then they wonder why they have no energy for a new future. And I think a part of mental wellness in the world today is having the audacity to believe that the best is ahead of you no matter what you have been facing. It's just, man, believing. Like, I don't have to get everything going on in my relationships, the most important relationships on the planet to me. I don't have to understand every aspect of it to believe, hey, man, like, our best days are in front of us, and how can I partner with God in creating the very best future that I can. Again, for those of you guys who are coming in a little bit later to this, if you go to our link in our bio, I've got like 5 strategies for you to communication to remember as you communicate with your adult kids. It's 5 strategies with 4 or 5 tips that go with each strategy, a practical way you can implement. I think it'll bless you. And again, man, what you got to lose? You go back to the bio here, and and we'll email it to you, this 2-page PDF, and I want to know if it helps you. I want you to know, man, like, we're learning together. I'm looking back through our comments, but we're learning together in this thing, everybody. We're learning and growing. I hope this is a place that we continue to grow, where we can help each other along the way, just a community that helps us as we raise kind of the bar as it relates to, positive relationships, healthy, productive relationships with our adult kids. I don't long for the good old days. I think the good old days are the days in front of us. And so let's encourage each other. One of the things I love, by the way, I do TikTok lives or Instagram. We'll do an Instagram thing on tonight's Tuesday. We'll do it on Thursday night. Come join us there. We're going to talk about building resiliency in your children. They're still living in your house. I think that's a huge issue today. Our kids are not resilient. They're not resilient because we're removing all the resistance. So we're going to talk about how you build resiliency. But you know what, man? When I'm with you guys, the parents of adult kids, like, it just seems to be a little more civil, doesn't it? I think, I have a bunch of people jumping in, cussing me out. And it's just because we're too old. We've lived too much life. We all want to kind of learn this thing together. And that's the feeling I get from you guys when we do this thing that I don't always get when I get a younger generation on. Again, it's not better or worse, but it is quite a bit different. And so I enjoy these times together. So I hope this blessed you. I appreciate so many of you sharing this with folks along the way. I wish I could sit down and have a cup of coffee with every one of you, and we could keep talking about these issues. But go to the link in bio. In our bio, there's a link. Click on it and get this gift that we want to give you. Take care. God bless everybody. We'll talk to you soon.